the next speaker, he is, could you learn to be a social entrepreneur? This is the next question. School for Social Entrepreneurship in UK. Here's the director, Alastair Wilson. Welcome up.
Hi. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. Keen to explore the question of how people who understand the problem, who have a vested interest in the problem, their lives, their communities, their families, their issues, how do we get those people, how do we unleash those people in terms of authoring new innovations, new solutions? How do we get those people driving change in communities? Because if we manage to do that, that would truly be a scalable force in terms of change. But not only that, it would target the issues. It would root change in the poorest communities where change was most needed. So is there a possibility of supporting people who really understand these issues firsthand and therefore can author really appropriate solutions? Is there a kind of methodology of supporting those people to allow them to have a go at authoring change in their communities and make change happen? So that's partly our theory of change at the School for Social Entrepreneurs. And I just want to, it's not rocket science, it's not too difficult, but unbelievably, it's done very rarely. And I want to kind of lift the lid on what we do at the School for Social Entrepreneurs that really enables people from all walks of life and all backgrounds to begin to have a go at authoring solutions to issues that they face in their community. The school was started by this chap here, who's 10 years dead now, Michael Young, who in his lifetime authored a whole pile of solutions: Open University, Language Line, Education Extra, Consumers Association, Which Magazines, 40 other institutions which are still going today, many of which are global. And when Michael came up with the concept of the School for Social Entrepreneurs, he, after spending a lifetime of being a social entrepreneur, he knew that you can't teach social entrepreneurship. It's a doing word. And therefore, he set out the School for Social Entrepreneurs as an action learning institution. So what does that mean? Well, basically, you don't get in unless you have a real live idea, either at start, trade, or scale level. So we go all the way through the levels. And then you join with your idea. You've got this idea that you've dreamt up in your bedroom, and you then join a cohort of 20 people who meet together only for 12 days throughout a year in blocks of 3 days. When they meet together, they don't hear from lecturers or teachers or curriculum. They don't sit exams and they don't do written papers. What they do is we find social entrepreneurs who have from scratch started their own initiatives, and we get them to come in and share their story. First of all, they've got to share their motivation. What got them into this? In order to level the room and allow a bit of trust and a bit of bond to happen. Then we ask them in 15 minutes to run through the story of how they got their social enterprise from the start all the way to where they've got it now. Then we stop them. And that we've agreed with them prior to them coming that they're going to share with the group an issue that nearly stopped their innovation, nearly made it go broke, go bust, not work. Now, if you ask somebody on the phone, some social entrepreneur on the phone when you're briefing them, can you think of what that issue might be, and would you be willing to share it? Believe you me, every single one has an incident or a point in time which was utterly critical. It might have been a governance battle, it might have been a staffing issue, it might have been a cash flow issue. So what we do is we then question them like a witness in a courtroom around that issue. And basically, through the 12 days that the group are together over this period of a year, we find witnesses who illuminate 20 areas of hidden curriculum. So the way entrepreneurs learn is not a teacher didactically imparting knowledge in a kind of theoretical way, but more a case of listening to practitioners and listening to stories to become aware of the issues that they don't know, to be willing to admit to the issues that they don't know. Well, that witness who's done very well and started the big issue, or another great social enterprise, they admitted they didn't know, so I can. And then networked and confident enough to go and find out. And what happens over this period of a year is they all get to know each other, and they model each other's behavior in terms of their own leadership style. So a lot of the blocks on people starting, particularly people from poor neighborhoods or from difficult backgrounds, a lot of the blocks are not what you might expect. You might say that the blocks to people starting and sustaining social enterprises are things like financial management, business planning, HR, et cetera. Well, it is those things. It is those hard skills. But actually, you're not going to get out of your bedroom if you don't have confidence, legitimacy, attitude, mindset, persistence, behavior. And you can't teach these softer skills. But if you get together in a group of 20 social entrepreneurs and you hear from practitioners who've been there, seen it and done it, the modeling of that behavior just becomes quite natural. So all of a sudden in the room, after a long period of time where the various case studies play out, all of a sudden people think, well, if he can do it, I can do it. I'm just going to give you one example, which is this chap here. And I put this little thing here saying 1 in 4 fellows have direct experience of the social issue they aim to address. So this guy here is Junior, who committed a crime. He was part of a gang when he was very young. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He served 10 years in prison. Now the problem for gang-related offences in London is when you get out of prison, you get a cheque for £100 from the government. So you've got to go back to the same place you came from. Now, if you committed a crime on behalf of your gang, when you go back to that community, even 10 years later, you are the hero because you did this for your gang. So if you don't want to re-offend, and you want to reinvent yourself, it's very difficult to do. So he came up with the idea of SOS Gangs Project, which supports gang-related offences in London. They've dealt with over 1,000 people, and the reoffending rate has been cut from 73% reoffending within 2 years to 23% reoffending within 2 years. Now, for the taxpayer, that makes all sorts of sense. It's about £100,000 to keep somebody in prison for a year. It's about £2,000 for the services of SOS Gangs Project. When Junior came and pitched his idea to the Dragon's Den, who were securing places at the School for Social Entrepreneurs, the response was, there's no business model. It's completely philanthropic, dependent. He's never going to sustain this. He's never going to get it off the ground. Because he was from a difficult background and a poorer community, immediately the people with power decided that because he hadn't worked out the business model beyond philanthropy, because he was dealing in a broken market where the prisoners couldn't come out and pay the £2,000 for the service, immediately the idea was not valid. And immediately we would have lost that social innovation. We would also, incidentally, have lost the jobs that he has created. He has created jobs for 5 full-time ex-gang members who've all served time in prison, who now all have jobs. These are completely unemployable people. So I think we've got to be very careful when we're looking at social innovation and we're looking at social entrepreneurship to open the gate to people in communities who otherwise are cut out. And the very nature of what they're doing means that they're working in broken markets without an obvious business model or financial engine to sustain and scale their work. What they will do is, over a period of time, they will get the evidence behind the impact that they're creating, and therefore they can begin to transition to sell contracts as opposed to fundraising for their income, to sell their outputs. and that will allow them to scale and sustain. But that duration and gestation of proving and evidencing impact does take some time. So I suppose my plea and my call is to really make sure that we open the opportunities at the early pipeline stage to ensure that we get people from affected communities authoring brilliant and innovative solutions in order that we can scale those for the future.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a seat next to Louise.